Welcome to Life Mastery Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Oh, I forgot to say, hey, it's a groovy day. That's because I make it that way. Every morning when I get up, I decide the whole day is going to be groovy. And that's the way it turns out. Things might change, things might happen, but I always think back. I started out groovy and I can turn this around with my belief system. Speaking of that, that's what we're going to talk about today as soon as we bring our guest in. But before we get started, I always like to get myself centered, situated, and sorted out and comfortable. And I do that by wiggling around a little bit. And I take in a deep breath. And as I'm taking in that deep breath, think about what it is that you connect to. What is it that you connect to that brings you solace, that brings you energy, that brings you power, that brings you inspiration, thoughts, and ideas? Could be God, could be Allah, could be the dude, whatever it is. Focus on that as you take in that deep breath. Here we go. All the way down. And then just let that breath out with a big ah, and let it flow up through your heart center, throat chakra, out of your speaker box and out into the universe. And think about that connection. Focus on it. Let's do that one more time. In with the deep breath, but this time think about your dreams, visions, and goals. What is it that you aspire to do, be, and have? And we're coming down to the wire. So next year is wide open. Figure it out. What is it that you want to do or accomplish next year? Focus on that. In with a deep breath. And again, out with just the big ah. And let that flow up out of your speaker box, out into the universe. And now here's the deal. Allow the universe to create the opportunity for those to come true for you. That's the way it works. But you got to have your chin up, head up, tail out from between your legs, just like a puppy dog, looking around for those opportunities because they are coming your way. That's the way this works. Believe me. And if you don't believe that, we're going to talk about things you can do to change that belief. It's just as soon as we bring our guest on. But for now, hi, Jackie. Jackie's my co-host. How are you today, my friend?
I'm good. I'm having trouble finding the feed though. So
am I your co-host or you're my co-host?
No, I guess the co means that we do this together, right? So I guess we're co-host each other, but I'm having trouble finding the feed this morning. So I'm not sure, not able to.
Our engineer hasn't put is it on Contact Talk Radio?
Nope.
Mr. Engineer, where's the feed? Come in, Mr. Engineer. Maybe.
Our engineer has laryngitis today, folks. So send him some good throat chakra energy.
Keep an eye out for it. How are things going at the Speak, Feed, Lead project?
Well, we actually just celebrated our second anniversary as a nonprofit. And so happy anniversary to us. Yay. And, we're still surviving. We're not thriving by any means, but we're still surviving. And, we started as a nonprofit just before the pandemic. So we really only operated during these turbulent times. So it's hard to know what's normal and how things should be, but we're still doing well. We're affecting the lives of kids. In fact, I'm working with several students now, helping them to get into the Launch X program this summer, helping them to craft their messages for their video that they have to use in their submission papers. And so it's fun. It's fun to help these young people understand the power of their message. Many times they don't know, they don't recognize that their experiences are important and that we all need to hear them. So it's really nice to be able to show them that.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch those kids and for them to find their voice and to speak their voice. And it's like a switch flips, right? They'll never be the same. They'll never be the same.
I hope so. I mean, I think that when you can flip that switch early in life, then hopefully, like like our guest is going to talk about today, it wires your brain a certain way, and you learn beliefs and you learn truths. And as long as those are good beliefs and good truths, then it's going to stay with you. Yeah, it becomes who you are.
And it gives them hope. You know, I was listening to something last night that they were talking about our youth today, and you know, there's a huge struggle, I guess, Jackie. Maybe you can confer this or not, but with hope, there's all of this stuff going on is plugging their mind and not giving them the ability to have a sense of direction or some hope or some outlook on, hey, what's in this for me?
Yeah, it's true. My students tell me all the time, they don't necessarily say I am without hope, but some of their other words that they use are that they feel stressed out. They feel worried all the time. They are out of control, or not in control, I should say, of what's happening around them or to them, as their perspective might say. And there's nothing they can do about it. You know, as I think I've said before, for some of these kids, global warming or climate change was the big bad thing that was coming down the road. And they were getting prepared for that, right? They were learning about that, and they were hoping that once they're adults, they're going to be part of the solution to this big problem. And so that's what they were focusing on, and they were going to be the heroes of the world, which I'm sure that they can be. However, then the pandemic came.
Motivating.
Yeah, the pandemic, all of a sudden, bam, the end of the world is no longer 12 or 20 years away. It's now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and so it really shocked them. It shook their world a little bit. And then they were all separated from friends and from school and any semblance of a routine. And their brains just didn't have the life experience to know how to deal with that. So it has been quite traumatic. Absolutely.
Well, it's programs like yours and programs like our guests today that will help them get through this and realize. So go check out both of these sites. Our show page today is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. And a link to our guests' website is there. And while you're on that page, you can find a link for Jackie. And certainly Jackie's book. Jackie has a book. I have a book. The links are there. So check them out. 6 Keys to Life Mastery and Self-Centered Leadership. Both of them take you to Amazon. You'll love them. And after you love them, please leave us some feedback. There's
Give
also
us some love, right?
There's also a link to our newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter once a week. It goes out. It highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and of course, her blog post about the show. And it's very enlightening. It will entice you to go back and check out the show on our YouTube channel. It looks like we're having a little difficulty with our feed today on Facebook Live, but that's okay. The recording is being created and we'll get it out there. We'll get it out there at a later date. Okay. I think I'm done yakking. Am I done yakking? Did I forget anything?
I don't think you're yakking. It's all good. It's all good information. I was just going to say that I feel very blessed to be able to go back and review our show each week to write that blog post because I know you've said things like, oh man, I've gained a lot just by going back and reading the blog, but I gained so much by reviewing the show to write that blog because there's things I pick up on the second time that I didn't get.
Because we're in the moment. We're having way too much fun. That's something. If you're watching the show, please tell your friends. Jackie and I just have a blast, and you can tell we have a blast, and our guests have a blast, and it's just an all-around blast. So, and it makes for great content. So please share. Tell a friend. We don't have, well, I guess we have telephones, we have cell phones, but now it's all about tell a friend. Tell a friend about Life Mastery Radio.
How much fun do you think we'd be having? How much more fun we'd be having if we were actually in the same room, like sitting across from each other in a studio?
Good old radio.
Like the old days.
Good old radio. Yeah, we're in the world of Zoom, that's for sure.
All right.
Okay, Jackie, this is your guest. That means tag you're it. You have the introduction.
I am the spokesmodel.
Take it away.
Yes, thank you so much. Shiraz. We're just going to go by first names, like, Cher. Shiraz is our guest today, and it's awesome to have Shiraz here. He's got a book that's wonderful that I've been reading, and I'm very impressed with it. But he uses energetic magic, he calls it, and he's helped thousands of people rewrite their reality. We were just talking about how reality's changed. Well, Shiraz tells us how to rewrite it. He's used it to overcome illness and poverty in his own life, and teaches others now how to use this energetic magic in theirs. Shiraz's transformational coaching programs for both individuals and groups will change the way attendees function in the world. His workshops and classes will help his clients overcome issues with money, success, health, and relationships. Shiraz is a powerful public speaker whose talks not only inspire, but also help listeners shift their beliefs and stories in the moment. His book is titled How to Rewrite Your Reality, Becoming the Author of the Stories in Your Life. Amazing concepts and precepts in his book, and it contains important lessons on how you can change your stories. So welcome our guest today, Shiraz. It's great to have you with us all the way from Canada, eh?
Hey.
All right. Thank you for having me. I love how the Americans always have to throw the A in there.
I know. You probably hate it, don't you?
The only time I hear it, because we don't actually say it that much. So,
Is that right? Oh.
yeah.
Jackie and I have many Canadian friends because we're in the Toastmasters organization. Jackie, we're gonna have to change our introduction for Canadians, I think. Can't say
Maybe
that anymore.
Maybe so. Well,
welcome, Shiraz, to the show. It's great to have you here. And energetic magic. Can you enlighten? What does that mean? What is energetic magic?
Well, the name came up because I've been working with people, and for me, it's all about energy. And your beliefs are energy. The stories you tell yourself, there's a certain energy to them. And when you start shifting things, your energy shifts. And I was talking to some friends because I wanted to create a name for what I do and a name for my company. And I'm like, it's got to be something around energy. And they're like, no. Because when you work with people, things just change, like reality shifts and it's like magic. So it's got to be something about magic. And then we're like, okay, energetic magic. There you go. Just that's both. And that's where the word came from. And it was funny because it came up for a group I was organizing, but then it became the name of my company. And then when I just decided I needed a name for what I do because I didn't have one, they're like, well, you've already got energetic magic, just use that. I'm like, oh, wow, it's all purpose. This is good.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are now. It sounds like, according to what I just said in your introduction, there's been some challenges you've had in life, and most of us do. So how do your programs now help people to overcome those challenges based on the challenges you've had? So start with your journey first. What was your life like?
So with my journey, the big thing I found out is that what you think is the problem is typically the solution. Okay? If you've got a persistent problem or a reoccurring problem in your life, it's not a problem, it's a solution. And most people don't get that, and that's why they can't fix it. And that became my problem when I was 22 years old, because I was in university. I was studying molecular genetics. I was a bodybuilder. I was like, just everything was going great for me. And then all of a sudden I got arthritis. And it wasn't just like, oh, my shoulders hurt kind of arthritis. It was pain in every single joint in my body. Right? And there were days where I would sip my dinner through a straw because I couldn't move my jaw because it was so swollen and in pain. And I would spend nights just lying in bed in agony. And that became my life for a while. And eventually, like, you know, any arthritic person, you learn to tolerate the pain, you build it up, and then you start to function. Everything takes more effort. You're constantly tired because you're fighting against your body. And I started going back to work and started doing things and creating a life, but it was always pain, and deterioration of the joints. And tried different things. So it's like I just didn't suffer through it. We tried medication and nutrition and supplements and acupuncture at one point, all sorts of things. And everything would work for a little while and then just stop. And I couldn't figure out what was going on, why things are only temporary. And then finally I had to talk with my dad and I said, is there anything we haven't tried yet? And this is after about 20 years of going through this. So,
oh my gosh.
yeah. And he said, there's this program over in India called combined therapy, and they've had success with multiple illnesses. And I went, multiple illnesses? And that's what caught my attention, because it's usually you go to someplace for cancer, you go to someplace for arthritis or diabetes. And he's like, no, everything. And it just didn't make any sense to me. Right? So, but I'm like, okay, that's different enough. Let me go try it. So I'm on a plane, I get over to India, and I met this guy there that did this program. And there's a whole story around even meeting this guy, but that'll take like another half hour. So he sat down and he talked to me for 2 weeks, and that was the program. And there were little other things, like he taught me breathing exercises and stuff like that. But mostly it was just talking to me about my entire life over 2 weeks. And I'm like, this is like being with a psychiatrist, not with being, with a healer, right? I'm in India, I expected like Reiki and stuff, and the guy going,
right,
the energy. And,
some woo. Let's get some woo going.
Yeah, what's going on here? And so then after the 2 weeks are over, he says, okay, here's the problem, Shiraz. You believe you're responsible for everyone in your life. And I looked at him, I said, no, I don't. And he said, no, I know you don't believe that consciously, but from everything you've told me, your journey through life, you've created a belief that you're responsible for everyone in your life. And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, I know I'm a responsible guy, but I don't think I'm responsible for everyone. And he goes, that's what I'm getting from you. And I'm like, okay, what the hell does that even have to do with arthritis? Well, who cares if I'm responsible, right? And he said, well, you don't want to be responsible for everyone. That's too much work. I went, yeah. He said, so if you're lying in bed in pain, you don't have to be responsible for anyone, and you don't have to feel guilty, and no one can fault you on it, and everything's fine. It's a solution for a problem you don't realize you have. And I went, that's messed up. He goes, but most illnesses are solutions for problems people don't realize they have, if it's a consistent chronic illness. And I thought, okay, that's weird, but okay. And then I shook my head and I said, wait. If that's true, all I have to do is say I'm not going to be responsible for anyone but me, and I shouldn't have arthritis anymore. And he said, if you honestly mean it deep down that you're not going to be responsible for anyone, right? Yeah, you have to believe it. Then you don't need the arthritis at that point. So I said, fine, I'm not going to be responsible for anyone but me. And the next morning I woke up, no pain, no inflammation, more mobility, and I could even breathe better. I'm freaking out, right? Like, what the hell just happened? You can't just go to bed with arthritis and wake up without arthritis, but apparently you can, right?
wow.
But the solution was the arthritis. The problem,
and the belief. The solution was your belief, right?
The belief was I have to make sure I'm not responsible for everyone. I have to find a way to not be responsible for everyone without feeling guilty and without getting blamed, right? The solution was arthritis.
Right.
Oh, for you, that was the manifestation of this belief system, right?
Yeah. And you could say it's psychosomatic, but I've got the deteriorated bones to show that, even though my brain caused it, it's physical, right? And so it's the same thing with just about every chronic illness. And you just have to figure out what is the actual problem. But then I started looking into this, and I realized this isn't just about illness. This is why you don't have the relationship you want. This is why you don't have the money you want. This is why your career isn't going in the direction you want, because that lack of success or the lack of what you're doing is actually the solution to something else that's going on, right? And once you figure out what you're actually worried about, and sometimes it's one thing, like for me, it was just that one thing. But for other things, there's a whole bunch of beliefs that the solution is solving all these beliefs. So you have to pull out all the beliefs before the solution, which you think is the problem, goes away.
Wow.
And that's it.
And that's basically what you coach people through. It's as simple as that. Is that what you're saying?
It's incredibly simple, but it's not easy. Because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it and everyone would be living a life.
Well, there's some introspection that has to be done, and you almost need a guide to help you through that, and to find those blocks. Do I want to call them a block? It's more of an inherent subconscious belief that is preventing you from or creating a manifestation of an illness or something along those lines that prevents you from moving forward.
Yeah. Hey, puppy.
Is that your dog, Todd?
It is. He's becoming more. He's just a puppy, and he hears noises, and yeah, he's cute. So we'll just deal with it. I'll catch it if I can. Shiraz, so go ahead.
So it's not just a belief, and here's the thing: most people don't get. It's an addiction. Right? You're actually addicted to those stories. You're addicted to your current reality. And that's why when a lot of people go for help, they can see some changes and then they lose it because you actually go into withdrawal from the addiction. Right? I actually worked with a guy a while back, and it was just the funniest thing because his big problem was something goes wrong every day. Something always goes wrong. Right? And I hate this. I want just to have a day where nothing goes wrong. And the belief around that was if something goes wrong, he gets to fix it and show how great he is at fixing things. So he needed something to go wrong every single day. And so I got him aware of that. We changed it, and then nothing went wrong for the next little while. And this is one of the reasons I say we have to work on it over and over again to get you out, because it's like going through rehab. You got to get out of it. So 3 weeks later, he calls me because he hadn't been working with me, and he's like, okay, we need to work again. I'm like, what happened? He goes, I lost it. And I'm like, you lost it. He said, here's the funny thing is that nothing went wrong. And for the first little while, I'm like, nothing's going wrong. This is awesome. My days are great. But then as nothing continued to go wrong, I started to get anxious. Well, I'm used to things going wrong. When's the next thing going to go wrong? And then when something finally did go wrong, I actually felt relieved. And I shouldn't feel relieved when something goes wrong.
Wow.
Well, that's an addiction that you're talking about, right? And we want to dig into that a little bit deeper, because some people that I know and I've heard, they spend their entire day looking for something to be miserable over. Right? I mean, anything that can come up that can give, and so what you're telling me is they're getting a dopamine hit, or they're getting something off of that keeps them going in that feel good, that quasi feel good moment.
There's 2 major components to the addiction. One, it's the dopamine hit. Whenever a story that repeats itself, you get to be right. See, it happened again. I was right every time, happened again. And so you get your dopamine hit, and you get into that addiction to the dopamine. The other thing is every time a story plays out, you grow neurons, right? And the neurons store what happened. And in your brain, it likes to be organized. So every time you grow one of these neurons, if it's similar to other neurons, it stacks them together. So instead of just these little thoughts, you get this river of consciousness of this story. This is how it works. You remember it more, you think about it more, you project it into the future more, and it's physical neurons in your brain controlling how you think. So to get out of it, you've actually got to create contrary neurons. So if it's like something always goes wrong, everything always goes right. And you've got to build up that cluster of neurons while letting this one dissolve so that your brain starts switching to this. And it is physical, right? And the other way I look at it is like when you're trying to deal with it, it's like a Jenga tower. So that cluster is like a Jenga tower. And when you realize, oh, it's because of this belief, you pull out a block. Oh, and this belief's in there too, you pull out a block. And you just keep pulling blocks out until finally the whole structure collapses. So in this version of Jenga, you want it to collapse. But what happens is if you go to an event, like, have you ever gone to like a big web seminar or retreat or something, and you come out of it, everything feels different. They've changed everything in your life. And then 3 months later, you're like, oh shit, it's back. It's all the content. It's because you pulled out some blocks, but didn't crush the tower. And then while you were out of it, not constantly pulling out blocks started to go back in, and it just solidified again.
Right.
That's what's going on.
It's a great visual.
Yeah, and in your book, Shiraz, you talk about beliefs and stories. And they're 2 different things, right? That are sort of manifesting toward that same addiction.
Yes.
Can you define a little bit the difference between beliefs and stories?
So a belief is something that just is, like you just believe that's what it is. The sky is blue, peanut butter tastes delicious. Like it's a belief. And a story is something that happens over and over again. And you'll notice it because you'll say it. There'll be cliches you use. If you say story of my life, this always happens every time. Those are all stories. And even some of them don't have to be like sound like repetitive. It's like no one listens to me. But the story is every time you talk to someone, they don't listen to you.
Mhm.
And this is it. You repeat these stories. And so they can feel real, but you're creating them. You're actually putting the evidence of the story out there so you can say, look, I'm right, and then anchor in the story. So things like no one listens to me, you'll actually hang out with people that are distracted all the time. So you can see them not listening to you. And then you're like, see, no one listens to me.
Interesting. And I say
Yeah.
that a lot. I say that to myself a lot. Ah, man, no one's listening to me. So that's a good example.
But this is what you do. And the more you repeat it, the more you anchor it in, the more you act from it and choose the right people, circumstances, everything. So you can say, nope, it's real. I've got all this evidence. It's real.
Hmm. And that feeds that addiction you're talking about.
And it feeds the addiction. And you just go through the cycle over and over again, making it just
Yeah.
anchoring everything in.
Well, so in your book, then you really focus on this story idea, and you use a lot of elements of stories as we know it,
Yes.
like the genre of a story and like the archetype of each of the characters in the story.
Yes.
So how does that play into changing these neurons in our brain to think differently?
Well, with the archetypes, you have to identify which archetypes are in you. People have multiple archetypes, but when you look at them and see the explanations of them, you can see, oh, this is why it feels good and this is why it sucks, right? So the savior archetype is a very popular one amongst people, and that's where you need to be there to save other people. You need to help them because it feels so great to be able to save people. But the problem with it, and I used to be a savior, I would always find girlfriends that needed to be saved. But as soon as I saved the girlfriend, then the relationship is doomed because I've got nothing to do. My value comes from saving them. So I kept getting dumped by my girlfriends because they didn't need saving anymore.
Nice.
And yeah, that's it. But then saviors can also be annoying because sometimes you don't need help, but they're trying to save you because that's where they get their value from, right? It's like, let me help. No, let me get in. And you're like, I got this. Leave me alone. And you'll feel empty if you don't have anyone to save. And you don't realize that you just being you is inherently valuable. And if you just allow yourself to be you, people will love you and have relationships with you, and you don't need to do anything. You still end up doing anything, but you don't need to do anything. And there's a big difference there. Right?
And in looking at those archetypes, I will tell you that I identified most strongly with the giver.
Okay.
And so I recognize through some of the things that you say is that's kind of what makes me feel valued, is being able to give and give and give. But what happens is, as you say in your book, I end up with nothing because I'm giving it all away. And then I'm going, how come I give all the time and I never get anything back?
Because if you get something back, you're not giving, you're receiving, and givers can't be receivers, right? And this is the thing, it's wonderful to give, but when you identify as a giver, you stop yourself from receiving. And I've seen it happen I met a woman, I think it's in the book, and she was sick. She looked like 20 years older than she was broke, and she wasn't happy. But at the same time, she was happy because she was a giver, and she was always giving her time, her money, her energy. So everyone else around her was happy. They were all dependent on her, and she was just wasting away. And we had to stop her from being a giver. And it's hard because if you identify as a giver and you stop it, the people that have been relying on you and becoming dependent on you will go into withdrawal from your reaction. They're going to want you to switch back. You're going to be pressured. You have to let go of all of that and stay in that new space until everyone gets used to the new you. Right? Because you're not the only one that's going to go through withdrawal when you change. Everyone around you is going to.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Todd said something, but he's muted.
Oh, you're muted, Todd.
There we go. How long does it take? I mean, you work with many people, and I'm sure it is a variance, but from your description and from what I'm hearing, this doesn't take very long. I mean, you can get something turned around pretty quick, correct?
Yes and no. So if you pull out that key Jenga block, it can happen in a session. So for me, it happened overnight. I've had people where I've done one session with them and their entire lives change and never changes back. And it's great. But more often, there's a whole bunch of beliefs attached. And so you're bringing block after block after block. And then as well, you've got to keep removing them and keep the withdrawal from happening so it doesn't come back. So I've found usually it takes about 6 months to get into a new space where you feel different, you're acting different, and different things are showing up. The changes can occur much quicker, but for them to stick usually takes around 6 months.
And that comes from working with somebody, right, on a weekly basis, reiterating. And I guess you call it, I think I heard you call it belief removal, right? You're extracting this belief,
yeah,
and you're replacing it with another belief. But I think what you're describing is that belief could jump back in there and just take right off where it left off.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's addiction. That's falling off the wagon. You just go back in because it's comfortable. Depending on how long you've been in it, for most people, it's been their lifetimes. It feels safe, right? And when from this point of view, comfortable and safe is where everyone wants to be. But comfortable and safe doesn't necessarily mean happy. Because when you're comfortable and safe, you know what's going to happen. You know the rules. You know what the environment is. And it could be an abusive relationship. It could be utter poverty. It could be that anxiety of living paycheck to paycheck, but you know how it feels. It's familiar, so it's comfortable. So when you actually, like with the last one, if you suddenly start making enough money that you don't have to worry and you've got more money in the bank every month, it feels weird. It feels unsafe. It's like, I'm not used to this. And so you go into withdrawal because you don't want to have lots of money and freedom. You're used to struggle and anxiety because that feels comfortable.
Right.
And people wonder why they have these short-lived things. And you consciously want to change, but unconsciously it's like, oh, no, feels different.
So if someone is, as you say, they're in this mindset of, I'm undeserving of wealth, I'm undeserving of abundance, and that sort of becomes their comfortable place. What is that solving for them? What is that situation of not having money? What could be the solution that is creating for them?
There's so many reasons.
Yeah.
So let me give you, this is my favorite example, and people can really relate to that, is for the money one. I often ask people, what if you could have an extra $100,000 a year? Would that be great? And the answer they always give me is, yeah, that'd be amazing. And when they say it, I can see it in their energy. No, God, no, that would be horrible. Right. So, and this is the thing, I can tell when your conscious beliefs align with your unconscious beliefs. So I can call you out anytime that you think you're telling the truth, but you're not. And so then when we get it like a no like that, it's okay. So we found there's a lie there. Let's find out why it's actually a lie for you. And then I start asking questions. And the common things that come up for people that they don't want the money is, well, if I have an extra $100,000 and my friends and family know, they're going to start asking me for money. They're going to ask me to invest in their projects. They're going to ask me to support them. And I don't want to have those conversations. And so if you don't want to have those conversations, your brain goes, ooh, what's the easiest way not to have those conversations? Don't have the money.
Right.
And they'll never have those conversations. And there could be other things. It could be, oh, I had a lot of money before and something really bad happened. If I have the money, will something bad happen again? Better be safe, not have the money. Right? If people ask me to do all these things, like come to these adventures, and I hate going on them, and I hate having to say no to them. But if I say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't afford it, I don't have to feel guilty. I can give them a no without guilt. So it's better not to have the money. And it goes on and on and on. And it's different for each person. But in the conversations I have, we find out what are their reasons. It's often multiple for not having the money they say they want.
Well, there's societal reasons too, right? Money is the root of all evil, or I mean, these things are ingrained in our society. Well, I don't know that it is so much anymore, but they're still around.
Oh, they're totally around. And yeah, and especially right now with all like the whole thing about the millionaire and billionaire class, the more you hate those people, and those people are associated with money, the harder you will push away from money.
Right.
So you God help you if you had all that money and started to become like them, even though you wouldn't. The belief is, oh, I got to make sure I'm not anything like them, and they have a lot of money, so I can't.
Yeah. One of the more interesting parts I found about your book was that we can have this genre
Mhm.
of our story,
Yes.
right? Where it's a horror or it's a drama or it's a comedy. So talk a little bit about that, because there might be some listeners who are able then to identify what's happening in their life story based on these genres that that are in your book.
So, and it's interesting because I came up with that concept while writing the book. It didn't exist before the book, and now all my clients use those metaphors.
Yeah.
And so what I did
Wow.
was thought of this, the energetic frequencies and the emotions attached to them. And when I looked at the emotions, I'm like, this looks like a genre. And so the lowest genre is tragedy. And that's where you're a victim, you're useless, you're in guilt or shame or blame, and there's nothing you can do. It's just, you're stuck in life. And it's a really low energy frequency. And there's a bunch of people that are in that space. But above that is the horror genre. And in there, you're able to do more, but there's anxiety, fear, possibly terror, worry. And it's also really low. Like the first one is like 0 to 2 out of 100. The second one is like 2 to 4 out of 100. Right? So it's still low. And the thing is, you're going to jump between genres all day. But most people have a default genre that they're in most of the day, and they often have a default emotion within that genre. And so you can live paycheck to paycheck, but some people are constantly worried, am I going to pay that paycheck? And so they're in that worry. So they're in the horror genre. But some people live paycheck to paycheck and they're like, no, I always get the money, but I just never save. And they're up in documentary because it's the same thing happens each month. In documentary, that's what it is. It's same old, things are good. Things aren't horrible. Let's not rock the boat. Let's just keep them the way they are. And in between those two is the drama genre. And there's so many people in the drama genre. This is judgment, right? This is me versus these people, the government, the church, society. Like you judge the hell out of people and you feel like you're being judged all the time. That's the drama genre. And the drama genre is the most addictive. Yeah. And you know that because look at the entertainment. If there's no drama, no one wants to watch it, right? And I'm all for watching drama, right? In movies and reading about it in books, watching it through people I know, but I don't like to have it in my life. Right? So, and so, yeah, so then we get out of drama, we go into documentary. And here's the thing, going from drama to documentary is hard because when documentary things are just going well, and we feel like there's more in our lives when there's drama. So it feels like you've lost something when you get from drama to documentary. That's why a lot of people just fall back. But the interesting thing is drama is actually where you could start to make lots of money. You can't really do it in the horror or tragedy, but you can see people with millions of dollars, but they've got all this drama in their life.
Yeah.
So, right, you're allowed to, you can make money in that genre. Above documentary is action adventure. And this is the people that are taking action, setting goals, getting out there. They love it. They get their fix every time they hit a new goal. And above that is comedy. And that's people that are just generally happy, laugh at themselves, have amusing lives. And they are like the action people. They're taking action, setting goals, but they're happy through the process and not just at the goals. Right? And that's a big difference because there's so much more happiness energy. And then finally above that is prophecy. And that's where you're in a state where, you know what would be cool if this happened, and then it just happens. Yeah. Right? Whether you take the action to do it or it just shows up, it's an amazing place. And here's the crazy thing is people can go into the prophecy genre for a little bit of time each day, but they can do it for the wrong reasons because it's like, oh, I know something's going to go wrong today. I'm going to make that happen. And then you drop down into the horror genre. It's like, oh, why is this happening to me? And you stick around there after you've manifested that thing from prophecy. So you are jumping back and forth all day.
And the mind is the main driver, right? I mean, I can create problems in my head that don't even exist. I can't even put them in a paper bag to throw them away. And yet my life revolves around them.
Yep. And this is what people do. This is the stories you create. And when you realize they're all just stories and you can rewrite them, every time you start to rewrite the stories, you rewrite your entire reality. So
addiction, we talked a lot about addiction. I personally have experience. You know, I am an alcoholic, and I spent many years trying to get into recovery. And it wasn't until I found a spiritual component. So is that something that you bring into the fold with clients that you work with? Is a spiritual component or a connection to something greater than themselves?
there's definitely a spiritual component. I just sort of, walk the line between spiritual and physical.
Yeah, it's tough these days, isn't it? Isn't it kind of?
Well, I don't think it's tough. I think that right now people are realizing that it's the same thing more and more. So okay, here's the blueprint of how the universe works. Okay, so just so you know it. In quantum physics, they've been, one of the big things they do is figure out, is life a particle or is it a wave?
Right.
And for a while they didn't know what the hell, but now they've sort of said sometimes it's a particle, sometimes it's a wave, but they're still trying to figure out what causes it. But they had an experiment that was done recently where they shine light through these slits and it causes a pattern on the wall, and depending on the pattern you can tell if it's a particle or a wave. And they had this experiment that consistently showed particle, 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 right? So they're fine. But then one guy said, well, what if there are waves in there that just aren't hitting the wall? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, if it's going to hit the wall, we'd see it. I said, no, but let's put a little wave detector just past one of the slits to see if there's any little waves coming through. And they put the wave detector through, and as soon as they put the wave detector there, the pattern on the wall became waves.
Yeah, because they started to observe it.
Because they were not just observe it, they were looking for a wave.
Yeah. So
it became a wave. So when you're looking for an outcome, you're actually generating that outcome at a quantum level. And they've since done other experiments where they're trying to observe quantum phenomena. And depending on the scientist observing the phenomena, you get different results.
Yeah.
So everything that you're putting out through intention and thought is affecting the world around you at a quantum level, which then manifests at a physical level. That's how it works. Okay. So there's an actual physics to this. Now, the thoughts you're putting out, 95% of them are coming from an unconscious level, not a conscious level, which is coming from the clusters of nerves in your brain that are thinking. So this is why when you change those clusters and get rid of the ones that are bad and replace them with the ones that are good, your unconscious beliefs cause a different intention at a quantum level, which cause a different result at a macro level. And that's why reality itself seems to change for you. You are physically affecting everything. And when people understand that, then the conclusion is, well, how do I change these neurons to these neurons? Because once you do that and you get that thing happening at an unconscious level, you don't even have to take any effort because you've got it generating automatically all the time. And that's what I teach people to do, is to get those neurons shifted over to a new cluster. And it's cool because the magic just starts to show up and show up and show up.
There's also the outside influence, right? The outside. I pictured it at one time as thoughts and ideas coming in and just cluttering up the mind. And then I learned to put an umbrella up and I could bounce those away and just focus on what it was that I was supposed to be thinking about, or that I wanted to think about, and not allowing those, well, I guess you'd call it that monkey mind, to take off on me.
Yeah. And you're going to be exposed to all these other people, and you can buy their stories and they can buy your stories.
Influence.
And, yes. And you can be in them for a moment, a couple hours. You can be in them for the rest of your lives. You're probably in a bunch of stories from your parents because you grew up in those stories.
Right.
And when you realize, and this is the really cool thing, sometimes when you realize the story you've been running isn't yours,
right,
then
it
it
didn't agree
just
to it
right there. It just goes and you stop functioning from it. And it's like, oh my God, that was always my parents' thing. Like I had one woman I was working on, and she was talking about having to break up with her boyfriend because her boyfriend didn't want kids and she wanted kids. And then when she said that, I'm like, that's not actually coming up true. And she goes, what do you mean? No, I do want kids. I'm like, do you? Why do you want kids? And she thought about it. She goes, oh, my parents want me to have kids. Oh my God, I don't actually want kids. Like, I'm trying to make them happy. Right. And you're going to break up with your boyfriend over your parents wanting you to have kids. She's like, no, I'm not breaking up with my boyfriend. Oh my God, no. So it just snapped out of it as soon as she realized what was going on.
So Shiraz, when you say that it's not coming up true,
yeah,
I'm guessing that you're picking up on a person's energy.
Yes.
And that's what you're commenting on.
Yes.
So what is that? How did you develop that skill? Or is it something that you found you just had to develop, something that you always had to be able to do that? Or is that something we can all do?
It's something, I teach classes on energetic magic, and everyone can learn how to do this.
Okay.
And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. But it's it's not hard. Here's the thing. I created energetic magic because it's not hard. And people see it and they see how powerful it is. And they figure, oh, it must take you years to learn that. And I'm like, it takes you years to become skillful at it, really skillful at it. But to actually learn it, it takes 2 days.
Mm.
Right? By the end of a weekend class I do, everyone is doing energetic magic on everyone else and getting results. Right. And they're like, what the hell? How is it? It can't be this easy. Yes, it can. So
what does that look like when you say everybody's doing energetic magic on everybody else? What does that look like?
Oh, it's like when I'm in a session with someone, I'm having that conversation, saying that's not coming up as true, and asking, when we get to a belief, are you willing to destroy that belief? When we get to a story, are you willing to step out of that story? They're doing it on each other. And then I'm like, so that person just did it on you. You've never done it before. How do you feel? I feel so different. They made me realize that I was thinking this all the time, and now I don't have to. And I'm like, you've been learning for 2 days, right? So,
wow. And it doesn't involve any kinesthesiology or muscle testing or anything like that. It's just, no. Huh.
You can do muscle testing as well in it if you're there personally, but especially right now, everything's online. So it's just about learning to read that energy. Yeah.
Wow. It's fascinating that you've taken it to this level. And this is your own modality. You've studied and researched, and then tell me that story a little bit. Did you step into it? Did you formulate it? Or did this just magically happen for you?
I was studying all sorts of modalities, theta healing, access consciousness, something called fifth dimensional energy work, and I can't remember what all the other ones were.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
There's a bunch. And there was all this dogma and routine and sometimes tools that were required, and there was complications, and you have to do this before you can do this, before you can do this. And I'm like, why can't it be easy? What's the easiest, simplest way we can get to identifying a belief? And my mind flashed back to when that guy I was working with said, well, here's the belief, right? Like you believe you're responsible for everyone in your life. And so I broke it down, and I stripped away everything that wasn't necessary and created energetic magic. And it works, and it's powerful, and it's easy.
You know, I'm just fascinated too, because you just told us everything we need to know, right? I mean, there's no hidden agenda. There's nothing. You just, this is the deal, people, and this is how it works. And you have a wonderful book. People can find that book on Amazon. We've talked about some amazing things. What are we missing? Is there something else that you usually talk to people about that comes up for you right now?
When you're trying to create something, it's interesting because you talked about hope earlier, is that I've actually gotten out of hope. Because for me, hope is like something will happen to change things, which makes it out of my hands. And for me, it's just, no, it's going to change. I'm going to get this. This is going to happen. There's just this certainty, because the universe works on resistance. And this is what a lot of people don't get. The less resistance you have to outcomes, the more everything just flows. And it seems straightforward, but this is how resistance shows up. It's like you're in a relationship and you get your heart broken, right? And now you want to get into another relationship after you've gotten over that, but you never want to feel like that again. You never want to have your heart broken again, right? But here's the thing: if you never want to have your heart broken again, then you're going to protect your heart, which means you're not going to open up your heart. So you're going to meet new people, and you're not going to open up your heart. So they're going to be like, oh, this person's not opening up their heart. I can't be in a relationship with them. So then that resistance to not opening your heart dooms the relationship. But then you take the evidence away. It's like, good thing I didn't open up my heart because they left. Right?
They're gone now.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what people do. And so when you're trying to create something, you have to be willing to have the best possible outcome and the worst possible outcome and anything in between happen, because that takes away the resistance. If you're saying, I'm willing to have the best possible outcome, but just a little bit of the worst possible outcome, you're actually in here because you're going the same amount each way. That's how the universe works, right? So, and it's not that you intend to have the worst possible outcome, you intend the best outcome, but you're like, if something really bad happens, I will get through it, I will deal with it, and I'll just keep going. And that's where all the resistance goes away. And the crazy thing is, when you're willing to have both, you tend to get what's on this side. Sometimes you got to go here, but most often you just got to get all the good stuff. but you can't trick the universe and say, I am willing, but you're not really. Right? It's just, it's the brain, the thoughts are just still going out there. It's still affecting everything around you. And so this is the hardest part for people.
Attachment, isn't it? That you boil it all down. I think that's attachment. It's you're not attached to the outcome, and a realization that it will be this or something better was the way I was taught.
Yeah. And the thing I find a lot of people doing is the resistance comes from, I will do this, I will create this as long as, right? And the as long as stops the manifestation, because that's you basically saying, no, I don't want it. Right? I'll have lots of money as long as no one comes and starts asking me for it. Okay, I don't want money.
So that's
are there, when you're working with groups of people then, I mean, I could see how this would be powerful on an individual level, because if you can read a person's energy, you have a little bit of an advantage there. Yep. But as you're working in groups with people, are there particular questions that you put forth for everyone to start thinking about, or what are the exercises or activities that you do with your groups look like?
It's exactly the same thing. I talk to one person, we go through their beliefs, and here's what happens is that I'm talking to that person, and like we're in a group of 20 and 18 of the people are like, oh, I have the same damn belief. So when I say, are you willing to destroy that belief? Everyone says yes, because I'm not the one destroying the beliefs. You are. It's your decision, just like with me and the arthritis. I'm just getting you to the question. And so it's very common that if I'm in a group, the fifth person I'm talking to says, I'd like to thank numbers 1, 2, and 4, because that cleared all sorts of crap for me. And then they go on to their thing, right? So it gets to be really powerful. Yeah.
Wow. So how big are your groups then?
It varies. So I have a monthly magic program. There's about 20 to 30 people in that regularly. And of course, I'm looking to expand that. I've got my New Year's Eve thing coming up I do it every year, clearing the negative energies and limiting beliefs of, in this case, 2021. And that's typically my biggest event. There's a couple hundred people show up for that. And it's very powerful. We go for 3 hours in the afternoon so that you can go out and party in the evening and just start the next year with a whole bunch of crap cleared.
Well, tell us more about that. How can our listeners learn about that and get involved in that?
Oh, just go to energeticmagic.com/NYE for New Year's Eve.
Okay.
And then sign up.
That easy, huh?
It's that easy, right?
Wow. That's cool.
Fascinating. So how accepted has the book been? How accepted is it with younger people?
It's actually doing really well. One of my friends got the book for his son who had been in depression for a while. Yeah. And he said he came out of depression after reading the book.
Just after reading the book.
Just after reading the book. And yeah, and the funny thing is, like, the reason I wrote the book was I've been to all these workshops. It's like, how do you get more clients? Well, you need a book. That's a lead.
You need a book.
Clients,
you need to write a book.
You need to write a book. So I wrote the book, but people are reading the book and like, I don't need to see you because I read the book. I'm like, oh my God.
I can't win.
You will reap the benefits of that. The return on the investment will last the rest of your life. That's for sure.
And I love what it's doing. And every now and then someone that has been reading the book comes back and says, I got it. It shifted things, but I realize I'm going to withdrawal. So I need to work with you so I can stay out of it. So it has helped in that, but I love it. And it's a little annoying at the same time that it's having that effect on people, that it's so powerful. I'm just like, wasn't what I expected, but I'm glad that's what showed up, because it has been helping hundreds and hundreds of people now.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I really like the book, but I'm one of those people that I'll read the book and I'll go, I got to have some accountability to this. I need personal help to someone, because it's like changing those tapes in your head, that have been there for your whole life. And I can see just by reading your book that I got a lot of tapes in there. And so it's like seeing, a physician to get rid of different, like maybe plaques in your blood or whatever that are on your heart, and you've got to take certain steps to be able to kind of get all of this out. And I think your system feels to me like the same way, that the book is a great resource, but it's not necessarily going to provide the accountability that you need to actually do the work. That's the way I do it. So.
Definitely, yeah. And the thing is, the other problem is that your subconscious will try to hide really major beliefs from you because it's trying to keep them. So whenever I get really stuck in my life, I have to go to someone else because I know I'm not going to find it. Right? So I'm like, okay, let's do a session. And so I go to one of my coaches and say, what's going on with me? And they're like, is it this? I'm like, oh my God, you're right. It's that.
Well, it's that third person perspective, I guess. Not, I don't know that I want to explain it that way, but it's just an accountability. And you know, you've talked about this before, and we rationalize all kinds of irrational behavior. So it's that person that helps hold us accountable. I think it's very cool.
Yep. Yeah. And
how do they find you? How do they find out about, do you have an upcoming program besides the New Year's Eve one? Is there a longer term program coming up that our listeners?
It sounded like you did something once a month, correct?
Yeah. So I have a monthly magic program that's going on. It's actually changing. We're adding a new app that actually tracks how you're building the muscle, the mental muscle in your brain, so you can see it. And it gives you like daily accountability things. They're not long. They're anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes so that you can just put them in during the day and stay on track. And so that's being introduced in January. And there's a personal track, and then there's a business track. And the business track has like weekly masterminding groups and business help and definitely accountability sessions. And so I'm looking forward to launching it in the new form in January. It's coming up, so you can just find it on the website.
Nice.
You just keep thinking about it and it will happen, right?
Yeah.
That's the way it happens. Oh my goodness, my friends, we only have a couple minutes left. Shiraz, thank you so much for showing up as you today. This was fascinating, and it was kind of a reiteration of what things I've been taught in the past, and brings it to that forefront. And now I have some new brain food to I guess recycle and get in. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll come back, because I think there's a lot more that we could talk about.
Sounds good. I'd love to be back. Maybe I can even like do a session on one of you guys next time.
Yeah, I want to watch Jackie. Jackie, any quick takeaways? You seemed very intrigued during this hour, and you have this big smile on your face, and it's just very cool to watch you.
Well, I just have, I have childhood trauma. So there's a lot back in there that I know still plays for me today. And when you said that this client of yours was living her parents' life, I'm like, yeah, I could see myself doing that a little bit. And so I'm going to finish the book because there's so much good information in there. Shiraz, you and I might be working together though, because I know there's some big changes I need to make here.
Keep working it, because it works if you work it. That's for sure. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell a friend. Please visit Shiraz's website. And lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Shiraz.
Thank you.
And I think it's around. Oh, wait, I'm getting a message. Thanks, guys. Got to run. See you, Shiraz.
Okay.
See you, Jackie. Thank
All right.
you.
Bye.